Do you remember how you first learned to love? No, not consciously. Not in the warm language of fairy tales or the perfumed whispers of adolescence. I mean the deep architecture beneath it, the silent programming that unfolded before you had words for yourself. It was not taught, it was absorbed. Every sigh in the room, every withheld touch, every outburst, every silence. This was your first education in desire. Before you chose your first lover, your parents had already chosen the blueprint. They did not do it knowingly. They did it in their presence and in their absence, in the way they embraced or recoiled from each other, in the way they met your needs or failed to. You were not an innocent witness. You were porous. The child does not watch and analyze. The child takes in and becomes. And so, here you are, loving in patterns. You do not remember constructing, seeking the familiar, even when it wounds you, resisting the unfamiliar, even when it could save you. This is not coincidence. It is psychic inevitability. You see, the unconscious does not care for your happiness. It cares for repetition. It clings to the known, because the known is survival. If love was warmth and security in your early years, then you will long for warmth. If love was distance, criticism, volatility, then, somewhere inside, you will mistake that for intimacy. You will circle it endlessly, like a moth around a flame, burning but unable to turn away. Your ego will protest. It will say, I chose differently. I sought freedom. I rebelled. But rebellion is still tethered to the thing it resists. Even in opposition, you are orbiting the same sun. And what of the parts of you that were never welcomed? The needs that were met with shaming or silence? Those needs did not die. They went underground. They became symptoms, compulsions, anxieties. They became the tightness in your chest, the voice that tells you not to call, the fear that rises when someone comes too close. This is the paradox. The child learns to repress in order to survive, but the adult pays for that repression with a fractured sense of self. What was once adaptive is now the prison. You do not remember the moment you decided that love required effort, that love was earned, not given, that you had to shrink, to please, to disappear. Or the moment you learned that love was dangerous, and you wrapped barbed wire around your heart to keep it safe. You do not remember because there was no decision. There was only absorption. Freud called this the family romance, the secret theater of longing and resentment, idealization and hatred that binds us to the parental figures even as we grow. You may believe you have escaped it, but every love you have ever chosen is a reenactment of that original drama. You are still speaking their language. And so you are caught between two forces, the conscious wish for something new and the unconscious pull toward the old wound. You say you want connection, but you sabotage it. You say you want freedom, but you choose partners who bind you. You say you want peace, but you are drawn to chaos. This is not failure. This is the logic of the unconscious. To see it clearly is not liberation, not yet. Awareness alone does not undo the knot, but it is the first wound, the necessary incision. It is the moment the ego trembles, realizing that it is not the master of its own house. And so I ask you, who taught you how to love? Who taught you how to suffer? Who taught you what to expect, what to endure, what to refuse? This is the work, to sit with the ghosts, to name them, to feel the rage and grief you buried long ago, to look at your reflection and see not only your face, but the faces of those who shaped it. Do not look away. The child within you is still waiting to be seen. But you do look away. You have looked away all your life. Not because you are weak, but because the gaze burns. To see is to feel, and to feel is to risk being torn open by memories that never truly left. The unconscious, Freud taught us, does not recognize time. What happened to you 20 years ago is still happening inside you. If it was never digested, never spoken, never mourned. The child is not a memory. The child is alive, pacing in the cellar of your mind, replaying the same scenes, searching for a different ending. And yet you pretend you are free. You dress your wounds in the language of adulthood logic, ambition, independence. You tell yourself that you are your own person now, but the traces remain. In the way your voice softens when you're afraid they'll leave. In the way your stomach tightens when someone loves you too much. In the way you crave closeness but fear suffocation. In the way you sabotage warmth because it feels foreign, suspect, unsafe. There is a name for this contradiction. Ambivalence. Love and hate. Longing and fear. Desire and disgust knotted together in the same thread. You inherited this ambivalence from your first attachments. The mother you loved and resented. The father you admired and feared. The caretakers who gave but withheld. Who nourished and wounded in the same breath. The child does not have the luxury of clarity. The child cannot say, this part is good, this part is bad. The child loves the whole, even if the whole is fractured. So you learn to split yourself instead. The parts of you they welcomed became the mask you wear in the world. The parts they rejected became shadows, buried in silence, leaking out sideways in dreams, in symptoms, in the peculiar ways you choose and reject others. The ego believes it is in charge, but the unconscious is the true architect, drawing you back into the old familiar dance. Rejection, pursuit, collapse, withdrawal, over and over. You ask, why do I end up here again? Why do I choose what hurts me? Why do I feel empty in the arms of someone who says all the right things? Because emptiness is familiar. Because love, as you experienced it, was not safe. Because safety itself feels alien to a nervous system trained in vigilance. We like to think we are rational creatures, but we are not. We are creatures of repetition. The compulsion to repeat, reenact, the wound in disguised forms, stronger than the will to change. We seek the parent in the lover, the old struggle in the new relationship, the same impossible task. This time, I will win their love. This time, I will heal the past by rewriting it in the present. But it never works. The partner is not your parent. The past cannot be rewritten. And still, you try. Because to stop trying would mean facing the truth. That what you needed was never given. That the wound is permanent. This is why Freud called analysis the talking cure, not because words heal, but because words reveal. To speak the unspeakable is to make the unconscious conscious, to bring into the light what the ego has hidden, not to erase it, not to transcend it, but to see it fully, without disguise. You want healing, but first, there must be recognition. The ego resists because it fears annihilation. It fears that to face the truth is to lose itself. In a way, it is right. The self you know was built to keep the truth out. To face it is to risk losing the old scaffolding. You think you are seeking love, but often you are seeking familiarity. You think you are avoiding pain, but often you are avoiding truth. The child still hopes the parent will change. The adult pretends the past no longer matters. Both are wrong. The past lives on, not as memory but as structure, shaping your desires, your fears, your reflexes. Look closely. Every time you fall in love, the child awakens. Every time you are rejected, the old grief surfaces. Every time you are abandoned, the same terror floods your chest. You are not living in the present. You are living in a loop, and the loop will not break until you stop running from it. Stop pretending you are unscarred. Stop blaming the world for repeating what you have not yet dared to confront. Stop hoping that the next lover will heal what only you can grieve. Sit with your ghosts. Hear their cries. Feel the rage you were not allowed to feel, the sadness you were forced to swallow. Let it burn through you. Even if it feels like it will destroy you, it won't. What destroys is silence. What poisons is repression. What saves is the terrible clarity of seeing. You may ask, what comes after seeing? There is no simple answer. Perhaps nothing comes. Perhaps you are left with the same wound, but no longer hiding from it. And in that nakedness, something shifts. Not healing, not bliss, but freedom from the compulsion to repeat. Freedom to choose, not out of fear or habit, but out of presence. This is the work. It is not romantic. It is not gentle. It is not what the ego wants. But it is the only way the unconscious loosens its grip. To love differently, you must first look into the abyss of how you learned to love. And you must do so without flinching. The abyss is not empty. It is crowded with faces, voices, gestures frozen in time. You think you have left them behind, but they are inside you, speaking through you, shaping the words you say in moments of love and moments of rage. The mother who withheld her warmth, the father whose approval you never won, the caregiver who vanished without explanation. Each one leaves a trace, a silent instruction. This is how love feels. This is how connection works. This is what you must do to be safe. And so you learned. You learned to mold yourself to their moods, to suppress your anger because it threatened the bond, to dim your joy because it provoked envy, to shrink your need because it was too heavy for them to carry. You learned that love is conditional, that closeness requires vigilance, that tenderness comes with a price. You learned not to be fully yourself. But what happens to the parts of you that could not be shown? They do not disappear. They gather in the shadows. They become the hunger you cannot name, the rage you turn inward, the self-sabotage you cannot explain. They become the dream that wakes you at 3 a.m., the compulsion to chase unavailable people, the fear that erupts when someone offers you the very thing you thought you wanted. You call it bad luck. You call it fate. But it is neither. It is repetition. The unconscious has no sense of time. What you could not resolve then, you try to resolve now over and over, with different faces and the same result. Freud called this the repetition compulsion, the drive to recreate the original wound, to master it, to finally make it end differently. But it never ends differently, because the adult lover is not the parent. They cannot give the child what was missing, and the child, hidden within you, does not care for reality. It only knows its longing. You want to heal, but healing is not what you imagine. It is not a return to innocence. It is not the disappearance of pain. Healing begins when you stop looking for a rescuer and start looking inward when you see, with brutal clarity, how you became who you are. It is not comforting. It is not easy, but it is the first step out of the loop. Ask yourself, who am I when I am not performing for love? Who am I when I no longer contort myself to avoid abandonment? Who am I when I stop running from the parts of me they could not accept? The ego will resist these questions. It will insist that you are fine, that the past is irrelevant, that you are in control. But the ego is a poor historian. It prefers amnesia to grief, denial to truth. It builds walls to keep the unconscious at bay. Yet the unconscious leaks through anyway in your patterns, your anxieties, your dreams, your choice of partners. This is why psychoanalysis is not about advice or quick fixes. It is about uncovering what the ego has buried. It is about listening to the symptoms, the slips of the tongue, the fantasies you cannot admit even to yourself. They are not random. They are messages. To listen is to descend into memory, into longing, into pain. The journey is solitary because no one else can walk it for you. Others can guide, can witness, can hold a mirror, but only you can face the child within. And when you do, you may discover something unexpected: compassion. Not the shallow kind that forgives too quickly, but the deep, trembling kind that comes from seeing how hard you fought to survive. Every defense you built was necessary then. Every pattern was a strategy. Even now, as they suffocate you, they are proof that you endured. But you are no longer that child. You do not need the same defenses. You can choose differently if you are willing to feel what you once had to suppress. Grief will come first. Grief for the love you did not receive, for the safety you never felt, for the self you abandoned to stay connected. Rage may follow the rage you turned against yourself because it was too dangerous to direct it outward. Let it come. Feel it fully. It is not destruction. It is life asserting itself. This is the paradox of growth. To move forward, you must go back. To love freely, you must first confront how you learned to love in chains. Do not expect closure. The past does not close. It softens. It releases its grip when it is seen. The ghosts quiet down when they are named. And then, perhaps for the first time, you will meet another person without the child pulling the strings. You will not seek a parent. You will not demand they heal what they did not break. You will stand as an adult, whole in your fractures, and offer love that is not a plea, not a performance, but a gift. This is not bliss. This is not perfection. This is freedom. And freedom, Freud warned, is a heavy burden. Most people flee from it. They prefer the familiar pain to the unfamiliar possibility. But you, if you have listened this far, you are already different. You have begun to see. And once seen, the unconscious can no longer rule in silence. Do not mistake this seeing for an end. The work of seeing is only the beginning. Once the unconscious has been touched, it does not release you easily. It resists exposure because its function was always to protect you. Repression was not a flaw, it was a shield. It kept you alive when you were too small to bear the truth. To lift that shield now is to invite every buried scream, every swallowed sob, every forbidden desire back into the light. And so you will feel resistance. You will feel it as boredom, as distraction, as the sudden urge to laugh or dismiss what you have uncovered. You will feel it as fatigue, as if every cell in your body wants to collapse and forget. The unconscious does not want to be known. It wants to remain the hidden master, orchestrating your life from the shadows. This is why insight alone is not enough. To know is not to change. The compulsion to repeat is stronger than mere understanding. Even as you recognize the pattern, you may find yourself walking back into it, seduced by its familiarity, betrayed by the part of you that still hopes for a different ending. And so you must return again and again to the scene of the criminal, to blame, not to excuse, but to feel, to allow the frozen emotions to thaw even if they burn. The child you were needs to grieve what it never received. The adult you are must endure that grief without running, without numbing, without collapsing into old roles. This is not easy. The psyche is cunning. It will try to negotiate, to compromise, to avoid the full weight of recognition. It will say, "I understand now." That is enough. But understanding is not enough. The body remembers what the mind denies. The nervous system holds the echoes of every unmet need, every betrayal, every terror endured in silence. You will want to rush this process, to arrive at some final state of wholeness. But there is no arrival. There is only deepening. Each layer revealed leads to another. Each defense dismantled exposes a new vulnerability. The work is endless because the unconscious is vast, and we are strangers to ourselves. Even now, as you listen, there are parts of you recoiling, tiny, fragile cells whispering, "Do not go further. It is too much." Honor them. Go slowly, but do not stop. The ego will scream that you are in danger, but the danger has already passed. You are no longer that powerless child. You can withstand what you once could not, and yet to do so is to die a little. Not a physical death, but the death of the old self, the false self you constructed to survive. That self is clever, adaptable, seductive. It will tell you it is you, but it is not. It is only a mask, stitched together from parental expectations, cultural demands, and childhood compromises. To take off the mask is to feel naked, exposed, unmoored. It is to face the terror of existing without a script. But it is also to glimpse, perhaps for the first time, the possibility of freedom. Freedom is not happiness. It is not comfort. It is the ability to choose without the unconscious dictating your choices. It is the ability to love without reenacting the old wound, to be close without abandoning yourself, to stay present even as fear and desire collide within you. Most people never reach this place. They settle for the familiar suffering because it feels safer than the unknown. They repeat their parents' lives in slightly altered form, passing the same invisible wounds down to the next generation. But you are listening. You are already different. Some part of you is ready to wake up, even if it means losing the illusion of who you thought you were. Do not mistake this for a path to bliss. There is no bliss here. There is only clarity. And clarity is a heavy gift. It strips away the stories you told yourself to feel safe. It leaves you standing face to face with your own contradictions, your own capacity for love and cruelty, your own hunger and shame. You may want to look away. You may want to retreat into distraction, into the comforting noise of the world. But if you can bear to stay, to look without judgment, something will begin to shift. Not all at once, not dramatically, but like ice melting in spring's low, imperceptible, inevitable. And then, one day you may notice that the old patterns have loosened their grip. You no longer feel compelled to chase those who reject you. You no longer mistake intensity for intimacy. You no longer fear being seen. This is not because the wound has healed. Wounds like these never fully heal. It is because you have stopped running from them. You have stopped demanding that others heal what only you can face. You have stopped asking love to rescue you from yourself. This is the paradox. When you no longer need love to fill the hole inside you, you are finally able to receive it. When you no longer fear loss, you are finally able to connect. When you no longer reject the parts of yourself you were taught to hide, you are finally whole, not because you are unbroken, but because you have embraced your brokenness. This is the work of a lifetime. It is not glamorous. It is not celebrated. It happens in silence, in the privacy of your own mind, in the long nights when you dare to sit with what you feel instead of fleeing from it. And yet, it is the only work worth doing. There is a moment in every inner journey when the voice of the ego grows desperate. It shouts, "Enough. This is not helping. Go back. Forget." And if you listen closely, beneath that shouting there is a whisper, a child's voice. If you see too much, you will stop loving them, and then you will be alone. This is the primal fear, that to see your parents clearly is flawed, limited, perhaps even harmful, is to sever the bond forever. As a child, that bond was life itself. You would have done anything to preserve it. You learned to contort yourself, to mute your anger, to blame yourself for their coldness, their volatility, their absence. Better to believe I am too much, I am not enough, than to see the terrifying truth that those you depended on could not give you what you needed. The child cannot survive such knowledge, and so it represses. It splits. It idealizes and excuses. It carries the weight of the parent's failures as its own private shame. But you are no longer a child. You can bear to see what the child could not. You can bear to grieve what the child had to deny. This is the work, to descend into the unconscious, not to destroy the past, but to liberate yourself from its invisible grip. The unconscious is not evil. It is not your enemy. It is a protector that became a jailer. It hides your pain because it fears you cannot endure it. But you can. You must. When you begin to remember, it will not come as a neat narrative. It will come as flashes, sensations, a heaviness in the body, the smell of a room, the sound of footsteps, the sharp sting of a parent's disapproving gaze. At first you will dismiss these as nothing, but they are not nothing. They are fragments of the story you were forced to forget. And as you piece them together, something strange happens. The ghosts lose their power. The scenes that haunted you lose their charge. Not because they vanish, but because you have finally looked at them without flinching. This is not forgiveness. Forgiveness may come later, or it may not come at all. This is something deeper. This is recognition. Ah, so this is how I became myself. So this is why I crave what wounds me. So this is why I run from what heals me. In that moment, a crack appears in the repetition. For the first time, you are not acting out the past. You are witnessing it. But do not confuse witnessing with transcendence. The old patterns will try to reclaim you. You will feel drawn to partners who echo your parents' shortcomings. You will feel tempted to abandon yourself again, to win love by shrinking, pleasing, disappearing. The pull is strong because it is ancient. To resist it is not a single act of will. It is a practice. It is the daily work of staying present with your own fear, your own longing, your own anger without collapsing into them, without discharging them onto others. At first, this feels like death, the death of the old self, the death of the story that kept you safe. But in that death, there is space for something new, not a perfected self, not a healed child, but an adult who can hold their own pain without demanding that others fix it, who can love without reenacting the old wound, who can choose connection without betraying themselves. Most people never get here. They live and die inside their defenses. They mistake their coping mechanisms for their personality. They call their repetitions fate. They say, "This is just who I am." But you are listening. You are willing to see. And in that willingness, a door opens. Behind that door is not bliss. Behind that door is not comfort. Behind that door is truth. And truth is the only thing that can set you free. To walk through is to say, I am ready to meet myself, all of myself, even the parts I was taught to hate, even the parts I buried to be loved. And then quietly, slowly you begin to see that love is not what you thought it was. Love is not winning someone's approval. Love is not merging, not disappearing, not fixing the other's wounds so they won't leave. Love is presence. Love is choosing. Love is saying, I see you, and I see me, and I do not need to vanish for us to meet. This is the beginning of freedom. And freedom, as Freud knew, is not for the faint of heart. It requires that you stand naked before yourself, stripped of illusions, and still choose to live. You will falter. You will relapse into old patterns. You will reach for the familiar pain because it feels safer than the unfamiliar possibility. But each time you see yourself clearly, the past loosens its hold. Each time you stay present with your own fear, the compulsion to repeat grows weaker. Each time you choose differently, the child within learns. It is safe now. I am safe now. This is not healing in the way you imagined it. The wound remains. The grief remains. But the suffering changes. It is no longer the blind suffering of reenactment. It is the conscious suffering of growth. And in that suffering, there is dignity. This is the work, the quiet, invisible work of meeting yourself, layer by layer, until nothing remains but what is real. And when you are real, love becomes possible. Not the desperate, clinging love of the child, not the transactional love of the mask, but the steady, imperfect love of one human being seeing another and saying, yes, you too are wounded, and I can meet you here as I am. This is not the ending. There is no ending. The psyche is an ocean, and you will return to its depths again and again. But now you know how to swim, and perhaps, at the very end of this descent, you will come to a place where words fall silent, not because there is nothing left to say, but because what you were searching for was never in words at all. Here, in this quiet, you will notice that the compulsion to explain yourself has softened, that the hunger for validation has grown still, that the frantic search for a savior has ceased not because someone came to rescue you, but because you no longer mistake rescue for love. You will look back and see the trail of your own becoming, the child who endured what should not have been endured, the adolescent who raged against absence, the adult who kept returning to the same unhealed story. You will see their struggles, their compromises, their desperate attempts to stitch together a self from fragments, and you will feel grief not the sharp grief of fresh wounds, but the deep, quiet grief of recognition. This is what was lost. This is what was never given. You will also feel something else, faint at first, almost unrecognizable, a warmth that asks nothing of you. Not love in the form you once craved, not intensity, not drama, not the dizzying high of being chosen, but a calm, steady presence. It is the love you can finally give yourself, now that you have stopped abandoning the parts of you that others could not hold. This is not a happy ending. There are no happy endings here. The unconscious does not believe in neat resolutions. The wound remains. The scars remain. But they are no longer the enemy. They are a map. And with this map, you are free to choose. To love not from hunger, but from wholeness. To stay not from fear, but from presence. To walk away not from avoidance, but from knowing your limits. Freedom does not feel like triumph. It feels like quiet, like space, like standing in your own skin without needing to be smaller or larger, harder or softer. You will still falter. You will still be pulled toward the familiar pain. But now, you will see it for what it is, an echo of the past, not a prophecy of the future. And perhaps, for the first time, you will look at those who hurt you not with longing, not with hatred, but with clarity. They too were shaped by invisible hands. They too were children once. This does not excuse them. It does not erase the harm, but it allows you to set down the weight you have carried all this time. The weight of trying to fix them, to redeem them, to rewrite a story that was never yours to write. The story is over. And now, at last, you can begin again, not as the child who learned to love in chains, not as the adult who mistook repetition for destiny, but as the one who has seen through it all and survived. You are free. Not perfectly, not forever, but enough. Enough to choose differently. Enough to stay awake. Enough to love without losing yourself. And that quiet, unglamorous, unspectacularis, everything.